Hey guys, I wanted to do a quick video here to talk about FPV UAV laws, rules and regulations. Um, the laws having to do with UAVs, drones, FPV, RC aircraft, everything like that. Um, but let's start back at the beginning. This is Team Black Sheep. You probably heard of them. Um, they're making all sorts of cool stuff now, electronics, airframes, uh, videos. But basically, look in the background. You see the Grand Canyon. So that will be important later. But Team Black Sheep was founded by this guy, Raphael Pirker, and he's a smart guy, entrepreneur, but RC aircraft, fanatic, and he loves flying them. He started flying wings, setting records, making cool videos. He made this video, the New York video, which most of the guys that I talked to, this is the #1 video for me. This was the video I saw, and then immediately I looked up FPV. I searched, what I should buy. It took me a few months before I started buying stuff, but this is what turned it on for me. This is it, and a lot of controversy came up with this video. Um, but if you look in here, he's flying pretty much only over water. He just fly over some people, some buildings, but pretty much only over water. Flies close to the Statue of Liberty. Some people were really offended by that because Raphael Pirker's Austrian, and a lot of the more patriotic, let's just leave it at that, people in this country had some problem with a damn foreigner coming and flying over Statue of Liberty. So yeah, it was great. So that came out, and people were all upset with him. Some people thought it was awesome, like me, but like 2 million views, so he's doing something right. But anyway, a few years later, he's chugging on, doing his thing, and he gets this in the mail. This is from the FAA to Trappy, Raphael Perker, basically notifying that he's been fined $10,000. These are the reasons why. Um, they talk about flying his right-wing Zephyr in the vicinity of University of Virginia. Um, it's an unmanned aircraft system. You're not a pilot, and blah, blah, blah. But number 5, you operated the flight referenced above for compensation. This is a big thing that the FAA is trying to make stick. Big difference between models and flying for commercial use. They're trying to make that a big distinction right now. But basically, this is the video. This is the University of Virginia where he flew. Um, this is what he got fined $10,000 for this video. He did this for an advertising company, which was making a video for the university to promote it. And he got basically did this. You can see he's flying low. He's flying between the buildings. He's flying, doing some really cool stunts. Uh, basically doing his thing. So this is what he got fined for, $10,000. They talk more about 10 feet to 400 feet. They use this term careless and reckless over and over, over and over, careless and reckless. And then they wanted to break it down even more because apparently uh, the numbers weren't enough, and so they wanted to use some letters too. And also, I love this demonstration of American education system. Fox example. I think he meant for example, but you can't proofread it when you're a federal government agency. You can't, spend 10 minutes proofreading something. That's ridiculous. But that typo will forever go down in history. The first UAV lawsuit ever. So that's pretty funny. Egg on their face. So when we go down this, they break this down even more. They talk about, how many feet, how many pedestrians were around him, that he directly toward the building, and he had to make an abrupt climb in order to avoid hitting the building. Careless and reckless. Blah, blah, blah. Careless and reckless. Um, so yeah, this is what they're trying to get him on, the Federal Aviation Regulations, the FARs, Section 9113. Basically, and then they say that you're hereby ordered to pay this amount, $10,000. You can mail it in here, or if you want for your convenience, you can pay with a credit card. So that's pretty funny. Basically, this is all just a bunch of crap. Careless and reckless. How is he careless and reckless? I thought that he owned a company I thought that he was an entrepreneur. I thought that he had, $1 million, $2 million of insurance for his company. I think if we go back here, this I think was confirmed on the RC group's discussion when it came up. I don't know if you can still find that, but if we watch the beginning of this video here, um, go through their sponsors, blah blah blah. Maybe I should skip ahead. But see this guy right here? He is a police officer, and he's standing in the middle of traffic to block this car because they're launching a plane that he knows everything in the world about because he is part of the campus security. He's been put in that position to make sure that everything goes smoothly for the shoot, to make sure that things go well because the shoot has been approved by the school board, yada yada yada. So why is it careless and reckless? That all sounds very professional, very safe. Sounds like there's a lot of precautions being taken. Um, things like that. So anyway, there's a lawsuit filed along with this fine. Instead of just paying the fine, instead of trying to settle, Trappy hired a lawyer, pretty good lawyers, and they're fighting it. Um, Recently, the case was totally dismissed uh, with uh, without prejudice, but dismissed. And okay, basically, you can read through this. It goes into a lot of the findings why um, it was dismissed in more detail, but everything is basically summarized here on page 7. You can go here to the National Transportation Safety Board's website. First of all of these definitions that they cited, uh, they're not applicable to a model aircraft. Um, they're not applicable to a styrofoam flying wing. The model aircraft operated by Trappy was only subjected to the FAA's voluntary compliance to safety guidelines, AC 9157. So let's go to that now. That is this Advisory Circular 9157. Check out this date, June 9th, 1981. So basically, this is the only thing that the FAA has in the books regarding RC aircraft, model aircraft, UAS systems. It's redundant, but um, this is all they have in the books. Most important part of this document right here, voluntary compliance. It's voluntary. You don't have to follow it if you don't want to. Let's get into it. Okay, background. Talking about, when crashing planes. Makes sense. Okay, select a site that's away from populated areas. Makes sense. Don't operate in front of spectators until you know what you're doing. Makes sense. Don't fly higher than 400 feet. And when you're flying within 3 miles of an 3 miles from an airport, notify the airport operator or their control tower. This is important because a lot of people talk about this as if it's law. This 400 feet, they talk about this like it's law. 400 feet, this is a voluntary compliance. This is the voluntary regulations, guidelines, uh, you know, recommendations the FAA has sent out for safe operations. It doesn't say it's prohibited within 3 miles of an airport. It just says you have to notify them. You have to let them know. And lots of RC fields are at airports. So this is all, fine. This has been what has been governing since 1981, and it's non-binding. It's voluntary. So when the judge talks about he was only subject to these, that's right. He's only subjected to voluntary guidelines. That's important. That's everything. Every FPVer should remember that. And then the FAA issued these policy notices in 2005, 2008 for internal guidance for personnel. Basically, employee memos to employees. Like if you work at Target and they're like, okay, from now on, anybody who's shady, we're gonna, have to alert their security guy, or from now on, you can't put the end caps with this color label. You have to use this color. Okay, internal memos. They're trying to use those as justification as federal law, and it's not going to fly. As judge, it's not part of the FARs. It's not law. So the next part does not establish jurisdictional basis for asserting these enforcements on the model aircraft operation. Again, this Part 91 section, this is laws for full size aircraft, full manned aircraft. and they're trying to enforce these against the hobby aircraft at a foams effort. And basically, it's saying it's non-binding. And this part's good. It says it's non-binding and it's invalid attempt at legislative rulemaking. You didn't follow the rules. You didn't follow these rules for making laws. So therefore, your law is invalid that you're trying to make. And finally, um, there's no enforceable FAA rule or FAR regulation applicable to model aircraft, or even for classifying model aircraft as a UAS. So this is important. Anybody who tells you you can't do anything, anybody who tells you what you're doing is illegal, says the FAA has banned it. Lots of people are saying that. So you just show them this. This is the judge, signed it. He terminated with prejudice. This lawsuit is null and void. It's been appealed. We'll get to that later. But basically, right now, for the foreseeable future, until the appeal comes back or whatever, uh, you should start your business now. You should fly as high and as far as you want now. You should do it safely, but you should do it now because rules are coming and they're probably going to ban a lot of this stuff. But right now, it's not. There's nothing. There's no laws. It's basically the Wild West right now. So we move on past the FARs. This is the FAA Modernization and Reform Act of 2012. This is another thing that a lot of people try to cite as law. This isn't law. This is from the House of Representatives, a a recommendation for the new rules that the FAA has to create these new rules because uh, everything's changing. There's drones, there's new technology. They want to incorporate all these changes. You can read through them. There's only a few sections that are applicable, but none of this is law. It's just recommendations to the FAA. So a lot of this language we'll probably see in the future, but right now none of it's binding. So right now they talk about special rules for unmanned aircraft. They talk about uh, the types and sizes and waivers and certificates and unmanned systems and this and that and studies and then here's what we care about, the special rule for model aircraft. So this is probably the exemption, very close to the exemption that we're going to get in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 10, 15 years if the FAA ever gets around to really making true rules instead of just internal memos. Um, so basically, these unmanned systems, this is the separation between the FAA's laws and a congressional, if you will, a exemption for hobbyists, um, people trying to fly for fun. So the first, if you follow these rules, you're exempted from any rule or regulation regarding model aircraft. If you follow these, okay, the aircraft is flown strictly for hobby or recreational use. The aircraft is operate. So that right there is the distinction between commercial use and hobby and recreational use and commercial use. That's a big distinction. I think that's kind of dangerous distinction they're making because um, if the FAA had their way or if this document was law, then technically every video that Horizon Hobby, Blade Helicopters or E-Flight, every video they release, every video that Flight Test does on YouTube that show, every video um, that like XJet or RC Model Reviews does, every video that I do that's monetized that has to do with RC aircraft flying them in the air, videotaping them while they're flying, video from the plane, anything like that uh, would make it a commercial flight, would make it commercial use. So if that were true, then a lot of people would be paying $10,000 fines. So that's something that people need to single out, and we need to, if this language comes back, we need to try to pummel it down as much so it doesn't have as many teeth as it has right now. Because it's kind of dangerous right now. But then it goes and talks about not getting in the way of real aircraft, not more than 55 pounds, um, not interfering with stuff. Here's 5 miles in the airport. You have to let them know, mutually agreed upon, yada yada. So, and then they define model aircraft as how it, flies through the sky, and then visual line of sight with the person operating the craft. That's important because it says visual line of sight. The AMA rules say unaided visual line of sight. This doesn't say unaided. This just says visual line of sight. So, if I use binoculars, fly really far. If I use, stabilized binoculars, I could go really far. So it's a big deal. And if I'm flying on top of a mountain, I could got a line of sight to that thing, for a long ways. And then they say again for hobby or recreational purposes, because it wasn't good enough the first time. So yeah, uh, so we need to fight some of this language. Some of it is sensible, some of it we need to fight, um, but a lot of it we'll probably see again in the future. So other news, Yosemite just banned UAS drones in their national park. This will probably be rolling out to a lot of national parks. And so if you want to fly in national parks now, is probably the best time because there's this big lawsuit we just won um, where the FAA has no jurisdiction over Jack when it comes to UASs. So Yosemite's going to ban it. Everybody else is going to ban it. You better do it now if you want to do it. But you better do it safe and don't cause a forest fire. Because if you do that, screw you. This is the reason the Yosemite banned it, because our friend Trappy flew to Grand Canyon and got some awesome video. He also got the attention of the rangers. Got kicked out. Got some footage confiscated. Caused a stir. Basically, they realized they didn't have any rules against RC aircraft, and they shot themselves and struggled to find any book at all because Trappy did his homework. He knew they didn't have any rules. That's why he flew in front of the visitor center with a crowd of people, because he knew he could get away with it because they didn't have rules. So they brought out a big dusty book, blew the dust off of it, opened up some page that said airplane on it, pointed to a rule that said you can't deliver supplies or humans or retrieve them from the park. So they tried to get them on an air delivery rule, which is for full-scale operations, delivering or picking up, cargo or humans. It's not has anything to do with taking video. Styrofoam plane can't deliver anything, can't carry cargo, can't carry people. So it is ludicrous. You can see, this video is amazing. You can't get these shots anywhere else. They banned flights below the canyon back in the 50s or 60s, I believe, after a collision. Um, uh, but the only way you fly in there is if you're search and rescue, flight for life helicopter, and there's an injured hiker or something else, because that's the only reason they allow anybody to fly in there. So these videos is totally unique. It's just a shame that we might not be able to get this in the future. But again, these are national parks. People go here to hike camp. I go there to hike camp. I love national parks, state parks. I love going to them all over the country. Um, uh, people want to hike, people want to camp. They don't want a drone quadricopter buzzing them or a Zephyr flying over full throttle. You just got to respect that. It makes sense. So I don't really mind this so much. Um, we might see state parks jumping on it too. But anyway, so let me move on. You want to stay up to date, go to the FPV lab. This is a great forum, and if you click here where it says SUHS legislation, you can stay up to date on laws that are going on, laws in Australia, they got stuff. Here's a discussion about if journalism is First Amendment right with a drone. Here's no-fly zones and DJI products around airports. Here's that story about Yosemite. So yeah, you can stay up to date here. Some big stories right now is Tess, a search and rescue company in Texas, got fined by the FAA similar to Trappy, and currently they're citing Trappy's case as the reason why they shouldn't be fined. So we move on, we go to the AMA rules, because a lot of people try to cite these as laws as well. These are just for AMA fields, or if you want to use their insurance, claim their insurance. So they talk about a lot of, give why, use a spotter. They talk about 400 feet and 3 miles of an airport without notifying. Again, it's not banned within 3 miles of an airport. You just have to notify the airport operator. You just have to let them know. And again, most of them are okay with that. and don't interfere. Here's 55 pounds in Mavis, a large model program for if you want your third scale B29 or whatever 27 scale, I don't know. Um, so they talk about drugs and alcohol. Yeah, that's one thing we should not do is test the 60 and 70-year-olds flying planes for drugs because I'm sure they don't have any medication in their system. So they talk about explosives, bombs make sense. Most of these make sense. Some of them are kind of silly, but again, in Mayfield, you're just gonna fly around in circles. I like this. Can't fly higher than approximately 400 feet. Approximately 400 feet. These guys fly turbine jets. They fly gliders. They fly EDFs, all this stuff. And I fly a plane or a heli quad with a barometer and a GPS. So I know exactly how high above the ground I am. But these guys have no clue. So they can't even follow the rules. Um, it's kind of funny. But anyway, here's the FPV rules. Now, these are truly a treat. If you want an FPV at the AMA, they nearly made it almost impossible. They talk about novice pilots. They talk about having spotters. They talk about having a pilot. Talk about maintaining visual line of sight. Which if I fly behind some trees, if I fly behind a hill or a shack, is that violating visual line of sight? If my spotter can't, you know, exactly see my plane for that split second, is that dangerous, or is my video link rock solid, and is there no problem? So it's kind of silly. It's kind of written by people who have no clue. I thought they amended a lot of this, but they left a lot of it the same. They talk about using buddy boxes. Talk about spotters trying to acquire control. If you have any trouble, it's more, this is if an FPV pilot experiences a safety issue that does not appear to be a brief glitch. What the hell does that mean? Where do they come up with this stuff? Frequencies approved. Yada yada. They do some funny stuff down here. They talk about must remain at or below 400 feet. And okay, this is funny. I don't think they caught this. Model aircraft flown using FPV must remain at or below 400 feet when within 3 miles of an airport. So if I'm out of 3 miles, I can fly unlimited. Is that what that means? I think that's what that means. That's what it's written. They talk about limits of 15 pounds. You can fly a gasser or B29 or whatever with 6 gallons of gas in it, uh, and it can be 55 pounds or even more. But mine's limited to 15, and I'm using top of the range, UHF, uh, video link, uh, return to home autopilot. But I'm only limited to 15. This guy's using 72 megahertz or a Spectrum or something, flying this huge plane. So it really is kind of silly. Again, I don't fly AMA fields. I don't need to. I know a lot of people need to fly at AMA fields. So you should just lobby with them. But got a lot of open space here, so I don't have to worry about that, which is good. So if anybody tries to use any of these rules against you, not rules unless you're at AMA field or you're trying to collect their insurance, um, there are no laws. Remember, the judge finds there are no laws. They haven't defined them. They haven't defined model aircraft or UASs. They've tried to, but they aren't binding. And specifically, there's no enforceable rule or regulation. So this is currently law right now. This is precedent. Now the FAA has appealed. Of course, it's their right. That's what they're expected to do. But basically, it's expected. Uh, Whether they win or not is up to the judges. I guess it's going to a panel now. It's going from a single judge to the NTSB, like a board, a panel of judges. So it should be interesting. But this is Trappy's response to the appeal. The appeal is pretty dumb. It's basically the same thing over and over. They talk about him violating the FARs that they haven't applied to model aircraft. They try to get him on the flying for commercial use, flying for money, which they also haven't defined. So this is interesting. The table of authorities. These are all the cases that Trappy's cited in his case. So when you have this type of legal uh, weight behind your arguments, the judges can't overturn some cases. Other cases they don't want to go in violation of. They don't want to be seen as trying to skirt around them. They want to honor past judgments while still maintaining new judgments. So it's you read through this. This is all basically the same stuff that was in the other one. Just said again. Stronger words, more colorful adjectives in this one. Um, let's see if we can get down to just a lot of this is just legalese, but you go to the end. There's always a conclusion. You can read that and then go back to the details later. But yeah, like there's nothing. They don't have any rules. They cite a whole bunch of cases in here of uh, planes. There's air show, like a famous crash between a biplane and an air show and a RC biplane. Um, and the FAA and TSB never investigated, never made any fines. They do that. The recent guy in East Coast who killed himself with his 650 or whatever helicopter. They never investigated that. They never fined anybody for that. And that was a death. So there's a lot of precedents that they bring up in here. It's very interesting, but you can see there's a lot of words. Just power through it. A lot of it's not that crazy to understand. There's just the way that lawyers talk. They say the same thing in like a paragraph that they could in one sentence, but they just want to make sure that they're precise. So that's about it. It's going to be appealed. Whether the appeal is upheld or not, I think what I think personally is it's going to be the original uh, conclusion is going to be upheld. The original decision is going to be upheld, and the fine is going to be dismissed, and Trappy is going to be vindicated. And the FAA might have to pay him a lot of attorney's fees as well. So that should be interesting to see how that comes out. But basically, yeah, good stuff. So if anybody tries to tell you what laws you're violating, this and that, now you can tell them the truth. So then, what you really need to worry about is the FCC. This is your radio gear, your radio frequency transmission stuff. This is stuff that they actually can fine you for. If you get caught violating these, you can get fined. These laws do exist. These laws are enforceable. So what you want to do is you want to find this Part 97. This covers the amateur radio or ham radio licenses. If you're not using FPV, then you don't need a ham license. Generally, because you're not using any onboard transmitters, you're not using the UHF systems that we are. That all falls under Part 15. That's like the 2.4 spectrums. Futabas are like 5.8 gigahertz under 25 milliwatts, or 2.4 gigahertz under like 25 milliwatts. That's all unregulated. You can go hog wild with all that. But this is for anything else. If you have a UHF system, any kind of video gear that's over 25 milliwatts, 900 megahertz, 1.3, 2.3, 2.4, 5.8, you need this. You need, or 433 UHF, you need to use this. So come here, amateur radio, Part 97. You want to search telecommand, and you want to go down to this section here, 97.215. And when you come here, this is telecommand model aircraft. This is what you need to do if you are using your ham radio gear to control a model craft, aircraft, boat, car, whatever. You need your station identification procedure, because if you're ham, remember, if you're ham radio or doing anything else, you need to broadcast your call sign every 10 minutes, or sometimes more, sometimes less, all sorts of rules. But this basically says it's not required. If it's only directed at the model craft, provided that it's not, provided that you have the station license's name and address and call sign attached to your transmitter. So that's not really a big deal. You see the guy in the FCC truck pull up, at the field, you could just write that on with Sharpie real quick. Not a big deal. You don't need to identify it over the transmission. B, you're not trying to cipher code or obscure meanings. But C, we care about transmitting power must not exceed 1 watt. 1 watt. A lot of people are buying 2-watt gear, 7-watt boosters I've seen. You can only do 1 watt. If they catch you doing more, especially if you interfere with somebody, if you're out there flying and you got a 2-watt booster, if you're using UHF and you got a 7-watt booster, and you interfere with somebody, like say the sheriff's trying to get into his car, but his little key fob won't open the door because you're jamming it with your 7-watt UHF, you could get fined for that. You could get arrested for that. That's obstructing, you know, um, people who have higher, uh, uh, they have a higher, they're higher in the hierarchy than you are on when it comes to the radio frequencies. So you need to be respectful of that. You need to follow everything it says for being a ham too. You can't just follow this one section. This just applies to controlling planes. There's another section in here about covering, if you search image transmissions, television transmissions, that's what we're using. There's a lot of rules. A lot of this doesn't apply, but one thing that you're supposed to do is transmit your call sign over your television transmission. I don't really do that. What I do is I write my call sign on my transmitter, and then basically I argue that that is my telecommand link, not my video link. That's not television being broadcast. That is my transmission link. Um, just as somebody else could intercept my UHF or my uh, control link and do whatever they wanted for whatever reason with that. They could do the same with my television link, but that's my telecommand link. So I treat that the same as my UHF, and I put my call sign on that. Yeah, you want to search through this and follow this because this, again, the FCC, these are actually laws. It's not like this case that was just dismissed. These are actually laws, and you can actually be fined for this stuff. So make sure you pay attention to that. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, if you have any more questions about legalities and stuff, come here. There's a thread here about Trappy's appeal. You can read about Trappy's appeal. But basically, yeah, so if you have any more questions for me, if you have any questions on the laws, if I missed anything, I'll put it in the comments. I'll try to get to it. But I think I covered most of it. And if people try to get you, man, come to this website right here, ntsb.gov. This is it, official. Come down here, page 7. I'm sorry, page 8. Number 5. There are no enforceable FAA rule or regulation applicable to model aircraft or for classifying model aircraft as a UAS. None. So that's all you need to know besides this. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Take it easy.